So, my initial thoughts on this. No. So now we're going to dive into a rabbit hole, everyone. I've gotten a number of tweets and messages from you about a gentleman who is suing over Star Trek Discovery's ideas or expression of their ideas. This is Anas Abdin, who claims that his series Tardigrades and Star Trek Discovery just have one or 20 too many substantial similarities for him. So Anas has sued CBS, claiming that his Tardigrades creation is way too similar to Star Trek Discovery, and so they must have ripped him off somehow. It appears that they were in contact at one point, and that has somehow not materialized into some further settlement of the issue. So let's take a quick look here. Oh, that's loud. That's loud. That's loud. That's very loud. So this is a 30-second clip, it looks like. Has a tardigrade as like the spaceship. Okay. Adventure Game Studio. It's a game. Okay. Okay. Keep you updated regarding the tardigrades and Star Trek Discovery posts from October 18th. Let's go back to October 18th. Star Trek Discovery and tardigrades. I've been approached lately by some fans via Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and AGS forums about several similarities between the new series Star Trek Discovery and my point-and-click adventure game Tardigrades. Honestly don't know how to begin with this, so I prepped a few screenshots showing both a TV show and my game for comparison. I'm doing this to clarify that I haven't stolen ideas from the show at all, since all of my posts from the devlog are dated years before the show. Tardigrades' production announcement was May 8th, 2014. The devlog can be found here. The game is about a civilization that lived on Earth 20,000 years ago on the verge of intergalactic travel, using giant tardigrades to travel anywhere in the universe. If you're not familiar, tardigrade is also known as a water bear. They are little organisms that are known to be very hardy, kind of like the cockroach, which is known to be able to survive in extreme conditions. Tardigrades are known to be able to survive in even more extreme conditions, if I understand correctly. So it's a kind of cute creature, and it looks very much like he's describing here in his GIF, just, you know, much smaller than that. So he's saying the main character is a botanist who will discover later in the game the connection between the tardigrades and space travel. He's made several promo videos, and then this. I want to thank everyone who posted videos, articles, and talked about the issue. The last 10 months were hard on me and the development of the project. I tried every possible way to have a respectful and reasonable discussion with CBS, but they treated me with disrespect and just dangled me around, postponing meetings and such. I gave them a lot of time. Conversation turned into the last one. I found a dead end with them, so I had to enforce my rights by filing a lawsuit. This is that lawsuit. Anas Osama Ibrahim Abdin versus CBS Broadcasting and Netflix. Jury trial demanded. Plaintiff commences the instant action seeking preliminary permanent injunction due to... Oh, God. Okay, so now, wait a second. The first line has said that they're seeking a preliminary injunction and or a permanent injunction. Do you guys remember from the Alex Mauer case? Yeah, she who will not be named, from a year ago. These kinds of injunctions are very hard to get. You have to show a likelihood of success on the merits and irreparable injury, irreparable harm. So not just likelihood of success, but also that the harm that's being whatevered in the meantime is going to be able to be repaired, or not able to be repaired by any sort of monetary compensation. So this is a extremely high standard. This is higher than normal for a case, is what I'm trying to say. Says that defendants infringed plaintiff's duly copyrighted and originally detailed manuscript published in February 2015, along with a series of videos, also originally published in 2015. Plaintiff's final compilation of works was published in 2017. Plaintiff holds a copyright. Additionally, Plaintiff being a resident of Kuwait, Plaintiff received copyright protection in said works via the Berne Convention or Universal Copyright Convention. I've been talking about this for a while. I wanted to see how it would play out if a copyright holder crosses borders using the Berne Convention or Universal Copyright Convention or other treaty to try and enforce their copyright law. I haven't seen anyone actually use the Berne Convention or the Universal Convention on Copyright or some other treaty, for instance, to enforce fair use law against Nintendo, or to adjudicate the PUBG and what was it, PUBG and Fortnite lawsuit? Yeah, PUBG was in Korea. Fortnite's in the U.S. Epic Games versus PUBG Corporation, I guess. But I don't think this is that case. We'll get to that. Additionally, plaintiff seeks damages from the defendant's infringement. Between May of 2014 and February 2015, plaintiff completed and published several forum articles and videos for a science fiction manuscript for an upcoming video game. While some of the content of these articles was factual, some portions of the article were changed or embellished by plaintiff. Plaintiff published these articles in Adventure Game Studio forums in 2014 and 15. The substantial, salient, and original aspects of the original work, copyrightable under the Act and the laws of the U.S., are as follows. The original work centers around a novel science fiction story revolving around space travel facilitated by a fictitious larva-like creature with 8 appendages, a multitude of teeth, sized larger than a human being, depicted with a blue hue labeled a tardigrade. The original work also concentrates on a gay relationship between 2 homosexual main characters, between an albino male. The original work also concentrates on a main character who is accused of treason. And so they keep going into the details of how these things are allegedly substantially similar. The substantial similarity are as follows. The infringing work centers around a large larva-like creature, 8 appendages, blue hue, ability to navigate space travel. The infringing work concentrates on a homosexual relationship, someone's accused of treason, etc. So then they first allege that they're looking for a preliminary injunction and actual damages and statutory damages and attorney's fees and costs. So, my initial thoughts on this. No. This is not copyright infringement, in my professional opinion, and I would not have filed this lawsuit. I'm not saying it's necessarily a Rule 11 violation for the attorney that did, but I would vehemently disagree with that, with the judgment of that it was a good idea to file this lawsuit, even if you're getting paid for it. I believe this falls squarely within scène affaire, or scenes of making, or otherwise background scenes. This is the idea versus expression dichotomy. I have written the first chapter and a little bit of a treatment for a story that I want to eventually write about how an AI takes over the world, but in like a more subtle way. And so like, okay, so what if somebody goes out there and writes my scene and writes a story about an AI that subtly takes over the world from within instead of, like a big war or something like Terminator? That's not copyrightable. I can't copyright. No one of you 7+ billion people in the world can write a story about an AI that takes over the world from within now because I said it on stream. That is not how this works. This tardigrade thing is a cool idea. I think it's an awesome idea, and it's absolutely copyrightable, and he absolutely has copyright protection on the expression of his ideas. But there is no way that someone teleporting from place to place using a blue animation is copyright substantial similarity with his teleporting somebody someplace using a blue animation. That's not copyright infringement. That's scène affaire. That's background scenes. That's unprotectable elements of copyright. Those are ideas, not expressions. What the level that CBS and Netflix would have to go to commit copyright infringement would pretty much have to be what we call per se copyright infringement in this case. In my opinion, they would have had to have internal documents, and maybe this is the only part of this that I could consider even closely meritorious, but I also consider it a bit of a fishing expedition. I would want to see evidence before filing the lawsuit that CBS or Netflix had internal communications that went something like this. Hey, we need a new idea for another Star Trek Discovery episode. Anyone have any cool ideas? Oh yeah, I read about this thing on the internet. This guy made a thing where tardigrades, like, they become like the way people space travel and everything. Why don't we do an episode where like a giant tardigrade is like a space travel thing? Yeah, that's really cool. I don't really know how to write a tardigrade episode. Do you think, like, what were his ideas? Well, he uses a giant blue tardigrade, and he has a gay guy, and he has a treason thing, and a subplot and everything. Yeah, you know what? Just use all that. Just use his ideas, and let's just go make our episode. If it actually says that, maybe that's per se copyright infringement. I'm going to guess that there are not internal communications that vilify and condemn what's the word I'm looking for? Prove that. I doubt that there are internal communications that prove that they were directly copying his expression into their treatment because they couldn't create ideas of their own. All they would have to do is say, yeah, we like that idea. We should create a tardigrade space travel thing. And then they go and write their own episode. If it just has elements of treason or just has elements of homosexuality, these are all things that are allowed to be included.
Yeah.
This would have to be so substantially similar. The whole work would pretty much have to be shot for shot the same. And I haven't seen enough of Anas's work to tell me he doesn't have 22 minutes. I'm assuming that Star Trek Discovery episodes are 22 minutes. He doesn't have 22 minutes of material here for me to compare. So it's almost like he has a minute and a half of material, and then they went and used that idea to create 22 minutes of episode. Yeah, that feels kind of shitty when someone uses your idea, but you can also look at it as flattery. You had a good idea. This person should feel very validated that their idea was good enough to use as a Star Trek plot. And I don't mean that that's how we steal ideas. I'm not saying that it's permissible to steal ideas because, you just make it better and then you can just say, well, you should be flattered. No, I just mean that the way this situation works out, the way this operation works out, this take it as flattery. Somebody might have seen your idea and made an episode out of the idea. That's cool. You can't copyright that. Anyway,
Yeah.
Sorry, I think Kurt, you wanted to say something, but I kept ranting.
Yeah, I think I'll give it. I think give the lawsuit one step more plausibility than I think you do. I come down the same conclusion, but I do think when you're talking about the idea expression dichotomy, which is where we're trying to go with this, the pure idea is not protectable, but the pure expression is protectable. So, Harry Potter with its particular characters is protectable. However, the general idea of a bunch of 10, 11-year-olds going off to a wizarding school and breaking them up into houses and having magical adventures, blah, 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 you can write that book. So the question is, where is the line between them? And the answer to that is when you're talking about a substantial similarity in expression. So there are some similarities here with the character and character traits. As chat was noting, the homosexual relationship between two characters who look similar. However, I don't think there's enough in common here to lay it on. And also, we should not ignore the possibility of mutually independent simultaneous creation, because the idea that two authors working independently could come up with very similar works at the same time happens quite a bit more often than you might initially expect if you haven't read the case law. There's quite a lot of that happens. So I'll give it one step more plausible. I don't think it's frivolous, but what I'm seeing here is not. I think you're right in the conclusion. I don't think there's enough here to find infringement.
And there are a few people in chat who are absolutely insisting that there's more to this and we should look further into this, and I appreciate that. I'm not trying to shut down the man's case. I was just saying at first glance it does not appear to be substantial similarity. Even,
I mean,
let me go a little bit further. Even if what you're saying in chat is true, that there were further things that are just way too close for it to be a coincidence, there would have to be more than just pictorial or plot similarities. Even as a whole, it can be similar. It can be very similar. It needs to be substantially similar.
You know what another good example on this domain is that I'm thinking of it now is Orville versus Star Trek. I mean, Orville is written essentially as a parody of Star Trek. And it's written and it's made and with very similar designs and stuff. But in my view, Orville is not an infringement of Star Trek, even though they both use ships and they both have similar costumes. And there's a lot of similarities between the two shows. So this, to me, in this lawsuit, what I'm seeing, this is more of an Orville versus Star Trek than it is this guy's thing versus Star Trek. So, I think that there's a lot of similarities, but there's not enough for it to be a copyright infringement. It's just merely two expressions of the same idea. But that's just how I'm seeing it right now.
So one of the things, for example, that a court would point out, so you've got this tardigrade here, which is Anos's tardigrade, and you've got the Star Trek Discovery tardigrade over here. Even though they are arguably drawn from the same idea, in no way is that copyright infringement. Now, yes, it's true that we look at the totality of the work. So again, if it's absolutely 100% stolen from his thing, and then there would be evidence of that where internal communications were saying, hey, we really like this Anos guy's story, let's use it. But remember who you're dealing with here. I'm not speaking good about CBS. I'm sure that CBS has made copyright mistakes in the past and everything, but they do have a legal department, and they do. The story that would have to come out of this would have to be pretty remarkable about how some producer or writer or someone was copying all this and somehow managed to get it past legal and really, I don't see it. I even with all of everything that you're telling me, I'm not trying to be a jerk here. I'm not trying to, just shut everybody down. But I really do think that even with everything you're telling me, unless it comes out that there was a damning email that says, hey, we're going to copy Anos's thing, I don't think that he's got a case here.
With substantial similarity, you have to prove access. So I don't know if you're aware or not, but has he demonstrated how that there's reason to believe that they knew about his work?
Yeah, so that's a good point. I forgot to bring that up. Substantial similarity is not just substantial similarity. It is substantial similarity plus access, which means that you have to prove access. Access means that the infringer had access to and likely looked at the work. If Anos is not well known, and if CBS's writers genuinely did not know about his work, that totally torpedoes access. So that would be one of the things that he will have to get in discovery, is proof of access. If he can't prove that they had access, then no, that torpedo is substantial similarity as well. It is, you are also allowed to make a substantially similar work as long as you don't make it on purpose. As long as you don't make it substantially similar on purpose. Two independent artists can make the exact same piece of artwork, and while they might have a copyright fight over it, as long as they didn't copy each other at all and they didn't even know about each other's work, they each have the copyright.
I mean, if that weren't true, then everyone who, went to, say, New York and started taking photographs of Times Square would be in copyright infringement of everyone else who had ever went to Times Square to take photographs. Mm-hmm. Each work is independently created. The fact that they might look similar is not copyright infringement.
So I'll finish up any thoughts that I have, any further thoughts after I'm able to watch a little bit more and do a little bit more. But I do hear you. You're telling me to look further into this, and maybe I'll try to do a larger analysis. So for our last story here, I wanted to revisit the Tardigrades thing. I had a few other stories planned this morning, but we're running out of time. I did take a look at the Tardigrades versus Star Trek Discovery story, and I wanted to say a few things that I think will be borne out in the lawsuit as well. The important things to consider when trying to figure out if Star Trek Discovery is a copyright infringement level copy of Tardigrades there are several copyright things you must consider. First, it is perfectly legal to take someone else's idea and turn it into your own expression. Ideas are not copyrightable. It is the expression of the idea. Now, this is very difficult to grasp sometimes. It's often a sort of ethereal versus practical sort of grasping of things. If I have the idea of a car drives down the road and the power that's created by its driving down the road can be used to power a time machine, that sounds an awful lot like Back to the Future. That does not mean that no one can ever write a movie about a car that is able to travel through time by driving. However, if I choose a silver DeLorean and a Dr. Brown style character and a Marty McFly style character, and if I make it 88 miles an hour, and if I make it that the tracks look just like the flames in a thing, now I'm starting to copy the expression of the idea. The 88 miles an hour is not just an idea, it's a specific expression of an idea. 88 miles an hour can still be an idea, so you can write any story you want with a car driving down the road at 88 miles an hour. It's when you offer it in connection with all the other elements. A silver DeLorean, time traveling with flames and Doc Brown and Marty McFly. Now it is a copyrightable, protected thing. Now, copyright is also created the moment you write something down, the moment that you fix that expression in a tangible medium. That is literally how it's written. So you get copyright protection the moment you write something down. So if I write down giant tardigrade protects people like a spaceship while they travel through space, that's cool. That's an expression. You've picked something in particular. You've picked a tardigrade, and you've picked space, and you've picked space travel and all that. However, you really haven't gone much farther than that, have you? A tardigrade is a real animal. It exists in nature. You didn't come up with tardigrade by yourself. You got that from nature. You didn't make up a special robot that has legs and is invincible and can travel through space. You made up a tardigrade. It's definitely a tardigrade in a different environment, but also tardigrades are known for existing in every environment, or able to at least. So it's not really as protectable in copyright as if you had created a space robot that was purple and yellow, had 9.5 appendages, 3 eyes, one of which was a googly eye, and those particulars become the expression. He chose a blue tardigrade, and he chose it to be, half the size of the planet and stuff. Those things become somewhat protectable elements. And if Star Trek Discovery starts copying every of the exact elements that way, we start to get into a copyright infringement situation. But there is a threshold. There is a point where it's not copyright infringement, and there is a point where it becomes copyright infringement. And frankly, in a case like this, that's probably for a jury to decide after hearing the facts from everybody. Let Honest give his brief, let Star Trek Paramount give their brief, and each of them can explain. Do you remember the Zootopia lawsuit? There were pages and pages and pages and pages and pages of Mr. Bunn does this, and Mr. Bunn looks like this, and Mr. Bunn carries himself like this, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then it would compare to the second character. The infringing Mr. Bunn does this, and the infringing Mr. Bunn does this. And they have to be pretty damn similar, substantially similar even, for it to be copyright infringement. So a couple things control here. One, you have these sort of background expressions that are considered ideas or considered not protectable. These background scène faire or scenes of making movies, scenes of making stories, these background story scenes, space travel is not protectable. We can just wipe that out completely. There is no way that Star Trek Discovery can't make a space travel movie. So we don't even really consider that. Is a tardigrade doing space travel as a giant tardigrade, is that something that's protectable? And not really all by itself. Like, that's the DeLorean thing, okay, so somebody made another time-traveling movie with a silver DeLorean. Okay, we're definitely closer to copyright infringement now, but have we copied enough that we've now copied Back to the Future? So, in the tardigrade case, then, we've been presented from Abdin's side. I forget what his name is. We've been presented with his side, and he said that there are characters who are gay, and there are characters who are anxious, and there are characters who have this hair color and hairstyle, and all of this seems to overlap. Yes, but remember that that's what was said in the beginning of the Zootopia lawsuit as well, that all these characters were the same and everything. The plaintiff is going to present things from their side, and they're only going to present the similarities. The plaintiff is not going to be presenting the things that are different. So now what we're going to hear from is either a motion to dismiss from Paramount, or if Paramount actually answers or this thing goes to a summary judgment motion, we will hear from Paramount all the differences, that they made certain decisions based on this or that the characters are different because of this or that. And if we see that the characters in Paramount are way more fleshed out than in Honest's complaint, and if we see that Honest's characters are fleshed out any differently, if there's any more detail than he has said, and if that detail doesn't overlap, this is not a case. This case is over. It will be adjudicated in favor of Paramount. The plaintiff needs to have shown not only that Paramount has access to his copyrighted work, and even better that they may have known about it and copied parts of it, and then also has to show substantial similarity. And that's a jury question. That's a judge adjudicating the facts in a bench trial, or that's a jury trial question. So it's a very hard question for us to answer here unless we can clearly see the facts fall one way or the other. And just based on what I've seen, I'm seeing a Zootopia situation. I'm seeing things that definitely look similar, but I'm not there yet with substantially similar. I'm not precluding it. It's plausible. And the motion to dismiss standard is going to determine how plausible the judge thinks it is. because if it survives a motion to dismiss, then at least the judge thinks there's something to be given to a jury. If it doesn't survive a motion to dismiss, then the judge agrees with me, and the judge thinks that there's no substantial similarity here. There's lots of similarity, there's overlap, but it is not so substantially similar as to constitute copyright infringement, in my humble opinion. And that is without me doing a Zootopia analysis. I did not have that many hours this week. It would probably take me tens of hours to conduct an analysis, and then another tens of hours to write it down, produce it into a video, and edit it. And I'm not there yet on this story. This story is not compelling enough to me yet where I want to invest 20 or 30 hours of my time figuring out every single detail of every character, trying to see if they are copyright infringement of one another or not. So that's just my cursory opinion based on what I've seen. We looked at it last week and we had some disagreement, you and I, some of us. So I agreed to look at it again, and I have. And I do not feel that it's copyright infringement. It is definitely worth looking into, or worth asking the question, or worth noting. But come on, I mean, we've seen movies that have come out at exactly the same time that are not copies, but are definitely similar to one another. Two cartoon shark movies at the same time, or two Romeo and Juliet movies at the same time, or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. A lot of these things happen where they come out where some smaller studio gets wind of a larger studio making something, and they make something similar, just not substantially similar. And then audiences who either didn't like or didn't want to see the other one might see theirs. Or audiences simply might get confused and might go see the wrong shark movie or something. I don't know why they do it. Or maybe it's just people are in a theme, and if they're in a theme, you know, if they feel like, you know, hey, this fish movie was fun, let's go see another fish movie. I don't know. It somehow works out for them. Good for them. I don't know how that works. So I'm not on board with the Tardigrades lawsuit being a plausible, successful lawsuit without hearing even more about how substantially similar these are. I'm looking forward to Paramount's response. I wish it would go to summary judgment. I know nobody in the case wants it to go to summary judgment, but I wish it would, so that we'd get a Zootopia style opinion at the end, and we get to find out all the details. We'll see what happens. All right, so that is our show, everyone. Thank you for joining me. I am, of course, Leonard French, your favorite copyright attorney. This is a community-supported channel. Thank you very much to all of our Patreon supporters for supporting us and our efforts to educate the lawful masses. In September now, we have new $50 plus supporters. Thank you very much to Jonathan Doe, John Steele, Gavin Barnard, Eevi, Andy, Kyle Mudrak, Verement, Tayne, Sean McNamara, William Gonzalez, Michael Pearce, Grunkle Tia Marie, Terry Crisp, Richard Fournier, and Michael Jones. Richard, let me know if I've mispronounced your name, if it's Fournier or something else, and I'll make sure to correct that. And thank you to the $5 plus supporters who are scrolling on the LED panel behind me, and I will find a place for you on the crawl as well. All right, that's our show, everyone. Have a good week, a good Labor Day holiday, and I will see you in the videos that drop. Love you all. I am Leonard French, your favorite copyright attorney. Thank you for all the bit donations. Blighted Tail on wins with the 160 bits. Have a great week.